Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about video games. Today I'm continuing with my favorite games of all time, this time covering numbers 25 to 21. 25 is a beautiful game with an original take on the Metroidvania genre. Ori and the Blind Forest was developed by Moon Studios and released for Xbox One and Windows in 2015. It's an action platformer where you play a spirit of the forest. In the heartbreaking introduction, a cataclysmic event happens, endangering the forest and those within it. Ori must restore the elements of water, wind, and warmth in order to bring things back into balance. The opening isn't long, but it really gets you invested in the story. Ori is one of the most gorgeous games I've ever played. The backgrounds have such vivid colors and come alive with small animations at every turn. Ori and their companion Sign glow with energy, and the whole thing has a dreamlike quality to it, supported by an emotional orchestral score. At the core of Ori are really solid mechanics. The platforming starts out simply, and new abilities are introduced at a good rate. These not only let you travel to new areas, but also make the gameplay more compelling. By the end, Ori will be gliding, floating, wall climbing, and charge jumping across the open map with aplomb. It is at times quite challenging, testing the player's timing and reactions. One particularly memorable segment is the escape from the Ginso tree, where Ori must outpace a rushing flood of water. This was such a tightly tuned sequence, and it lasted almost a minute and a half. I won't lie, I failed many times and swore a lot. But it felt good to overcome the game's challenges, and I was rewarded at every step with exquisite visuals and characters. The next game had a major impact on my gaming history. Final Fantasy VII was developed by Squaresoft and released for PS1 in 1997. It's a Japanese role-playing game that follows Cloud Strife, a mercenary who's assisting an eco-terrorist group and fighting the very people he used to work for. Soon we find out that the entire planet is at stake. The release of this game was an event. I know I'd seen TV commercials for video games before, but these were different. They were cinematic and narrated like movie trailers. But they emphasized that this was something you weren't going to get in a movie. It could only be experienced as a game. Final Fantasy VII single-handedly changed the course of my gaming history. I had previously only had an NES and spent a good portion of elementary school just playing PC games, and this is what got me back into consoles. When I saw the commercials and heard my friends talk about it, I knew I needed to get a PlayStation. I would not call this the best Final Fantasy or the one I'd most want to replay now, but it is the most memorable. It's been over a decade since I last played it past Midgar, but I have such vivid memories of all of it. The music is one of the things most ingrained in my mind, from the eerie piano notes when Jenova is near to the satisfying victory fanfare. Hearing any music brings me right back to that moment in game. 23 is an adventure that takes place after a calamity.
Listen, all this takes a lot of getting used to.
Bastion was developed by Supergiant Games and first released on Xbox 360 in 2011. It's an action game where you play the kid, who wakes up to find his world has been destroyed, the land broken, and the people turned to ash. You find the Bastion, where you meet a few other survivors and go about trying to start over. The gameplay in Bastion is very fun. It's fairly simple action, but there are a variety of weapons to use, like hammers, bows, and battering rams. You can also build structures in the Bastion, which let you do things like power up your weapons, add more challenge and bigger rewards to combat, or distill spirits that will give you different buffs. There are also challenges for each type of weapon, where you get a chance to test your mastery of them for some good rewards. But what takes Bastion's engaging gameplay to another level is the soundtrack. Darren Korb does the music in all of Supergiant's games. He is brilliant, and this is hands down my favorite original game soundtrack. In a way, Bastion is about a loss of music, as its baritone narrator talks about missing it, but its levels are accompanied by the most amazing tracks. Most of the music in Bastion is earthy and raw. It evokes a place made of stone and metal, gears grinding, rocks crushing, steamworks pumping. But then there are the vocal tracks. The song Build the Wall, sung by Ashley Barrett, is the most melancholy and beautiful piece of music I've heard in a game. Next is a cyberpunk adventure from Hideo Kojima. Snatcher was developed by Konami and released in North America for Sega CD in 1994, though it originally came out in Japan all the way back in '88. It's a visual adventure where you play Gillian Seed, an amnesiac who has just started working for the Anti-Snatcher Task Force, Junker. He has two goals: kill the biosynthetic snatchers who are killing and posing as humans, and recover his lost memory. Snatcher borrows heavily from some classic cyberpunk stories like Terminator and Blade Runner. It looks good, has surprisingly great voice acting, and is accompanied by a jazzy score. Along with your robot companion, Metal Gear, you investigate locations and interrogate people, solve some basic puzzles, and have the occasional shootout. Snatcher rewards the observant, as there are a ton of little references and Easter eggs to find. It delivers a good story, and the combination of video, audio, and text melds together into a very unique package. The game's not without its faults. The interface is weak, the gameplay can be repetitive, the action sequences have sketchy controls, but I still loved it when I played through a few years ago. The game's oddities and nods to its audience always put a smile on my face, and I never found myself losing interest, no matter how long the cutscenes were. It's a game where the whole is definitely greater than the sum of its parts. 21 is a reimagining of one of the games that originated the 3D first-person shooter genre. Wolfenstein: The New Order was developed by Machine Games and released in 2014. It's a first-person shooter where you play BJ Blazkowicz, who, in the beginning, is trying to stop the Nazis during World War II. Unfortunately, he's unsuccessful, and the game skips forward 14 years. The war is long over, the Allies have surrendered, but BJ isn't done fighting. Him and a group of others who will not give up the resistance wage a guerrilla war, and take part in the occasional laser gun battle on the moon. The New Order takes a series not really known for story or character and makes them central to the game. We get to know BJ really well through his actions and inner monologues. He may look like a hulking meathead, but that's not really true. Some of the other Resistance members get even richer stories and characterization, and interactions in the Resistance base, whether full-on cutscenes or overheard conversations, are always a treat. They even manage to fit in a romance with a few sex scenes that don't make me cringe, which, for an action game, is quite the feat. Wolfenstein manages to create wonderful character moments and offer engaging gameplay. Shooting, stabbing, and strangling Nazis is very satisfying, and each weapon has a unique feel to it. Modifications give you even more options to tailor the combat to your personal preferences. There's also the option to use stealth in many levels. Though I'm usually too impatient for this, I really loved how it was implemented in the game. I found myself sneaking around using just my trusty knife to clear out enemies whenever I could. That's it for this episode. Next time, we finally crack the top 20. There will be dragons, spaceships, gangsters, dungeons, and mysterious lands. Patrick Stewart even makes an appearance, so you know it'll be exciting. If you missed it, check out the last episode in this series or my review of Snatcher. I have a Patreon if you're interested in supporting my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.